Hello, I'm Stephanie Robledo, and this is Tu Voz. Last episode, we spoke about Latinas and marianismo with Thalia, who's from Panama, Bella, whose family is originally from Mexico but has been in the US for generations, and Abril, who's first-generation Mexican-American. For today's episode of Tu Voz, all three women came together to take a deeper look into marianismo and gender expectations within the Latina community. In their experiences, we continue to learn how Latinas use their voice to resist cultural gendered expectations and double standards within their families. Individually, they focused on being la mujer buena and keeping up with appearances, who was enforcing the gender roles and how they reacted to it. Now let's hear from the interviewees as they speak more on this topic. The last time I met with all of you individually, we talked about, being Latina, the expectations that came with that, and gender norms, among other things. And we began speaking about your families and growing up alongside a brother, the double standards that came with that. Could all of you tell me more about, the double standards that you experienced or saw with how you and your brothers were raised?
My brother right now, he's in that age where he wants to explore. So he has a girlfriend and he's having girlfriend problems. And my mom's not telling him anything. I was like, if I was having those problems with my boyfriend, my mom would be on me. You shouldn't be doing to him. He's so good to you, this and that. I'm like, why? But then I'm thinking, why don't you tell my brother that? His girlfriend is the nicest person ever and everything. She doesn't tell him anything. But if it was me, I would be the one getting lectured about me, treating my boyfriend like that or anything like that.
My most recent example was with my male cousin. So I'm from Colón, from Panama. I was in Colón for a whole month this past time for over the break. And my tia and my mom, even though my mom didn't come with me, I went alone. But both of them are a little more protective. And sometimes whenever our moms, Latina moms, can be protective, sometimes it can also stem to being over-exaggerated to where they just keep us in our house and don't allow us to go anywhere. So my cousin I met, he's 18. And he would just go out on the streets all the time. He does that every single day, but that's normal. But every time I was going out on the streets and I would come back late, my tia would get mad at me and say, why were you out so late on the streets? You shouldn't be doing that. But my cousin would literally get back at 10 a.m. He'll get back at 10 a.m., 11 a.m. And he's 18. And so that's why I had put the age, because I'm 21. And I'm also from there too, even though I live in the U.S. now. I have friends there. I have my other family there. Those are my streets also. So whenever I would go out, she would just say, okay, well, you need to tell me you're coming back and you need to be back by this time and you can't be gone too long. And sometimes my cousin would just get up and be like, ya voy. And my tía would be like, ¿para dónde? And he'd just, San Judas. And she'd be like, okay. Or sometimes he would be like, ahorita regreso. And not even tell her and just leave.
Is it different in the US and Panama, how you experience these things?
I felt like the standard was more because my mom overall is really strict. So even though my brother was allowed to go to way more places, activities with his friends and do more things, my mom would also always give him a time where he needed to be back. With me, it would just be no. Whereas over there, my cousin literally just left for 8 hours and we just wouldn't know where he was. So it felt even more exaggerated on the liberty and freedom that he got to do than over here in comparison with my brother.
What about you, Bella? Is there a specific example that comes to mind when thinking about the double standards you experienced within your family?
Well, my brother's a bit younger. He's 15 at the moment. And he's very antisocial, doesn't really go out. So he stays in his room most of the time. He just plays on his Xbox. That's what he does. And along those realms, I'm also a bit more on the introverted side. I'm a big homebody. I like to stay in my room and just do my thing. But it appears as if my parents, they get on to me more about that. If that makes sense. They're like, oh, why are you always in your room? You're such a little snail. You don't like to come out. And they give me shit for that, but they don't really give my brother shit for that. Or say, he doesn't like to go to a lot of family gatherings and events and stuff. My parents are like, okay, fine, whatever. But with me, if I don't go, they're like, why didn't you come? Everyone was asking about you guys. It's so you get to let him skip out on these family events and stuff, but you don't let me do it. So I have to go and had to act as a representative for him as well and be like, oh, how's your brother? How was he? What's he doing? All that good stuff, because he gets a free pass from them.
Based on what we've been talking about, it seems that you all are held at different standards than your brothers. How does that make y'all feel?
It feels frustrating for me because I know, like how you said that Latina moms can be very protective, and they are, but it's like, I'm 19, I better be 20, and he's like 15, and he has way more freedom than I do. So it's like frustrating because it's like they get to enjoy their teenagehood, they get to enjoy like staying out late with their friends, and I didn't because I had a curfew or I couldn't go out, or it's because my mom didn't know who I was with. So she's like, the famous word, no sabes qué va a pasar. It's frustrating and kind of like, it angers me sometimes because I'm like, he gets to enjoy his teenagehood. He gets to enjoy all this stuff that I'm supposed to too, but then I can't. And then they have the audacity to come and tell me like, why are you so antisocial? Why don't you have friends? Like, because of you, because you wouldn't let me go out. You blame me for not having friends, but you're like the reason why I don't have any friends.
Yeah, it's really frustrating, like, just being held onto that different standard for everything. And, like, again, to an extent, I understand with my brother. And, like, because he's younger than me. And when I bring this up to my parents, they're like, oh, he's younger than you, Bella. Why are you picking on a teenager? And stuff like that. And I'm like, okay, but if I acted like how he acted when I was 15, if I just holed up in my room, if I got really mad and was super argumentative with you guys and, like, outright insulted you two at age of 15, I would have gotten beat. But you guys don't really do that. At least you don't do that to the same extent that you would have done for me. That makes sense. This is
So I have an older brother. I'm the middle child, and then there's my sister.
Oh, okay.
So I guess it can be different from the feeling that y'all have, where they get to do more stuff, but I'm like older, or I didn't get to do that when I was their age.
Mm-hmm.
It was more of, I saw my brother get to do these things, and then when I got to that age, kind of like, okay, well, Anthony did this and did that. I couldn't. And so it was more like that way. And, but at the same time, it was hard with us growing up because we're only 2 years apart. So we like went to the same elementary school, we went to the same high school. And since we were also so close in age, sometimes we also didn't have like the best relationship. And then he could do stuff, but I couldn't do stuff. And then, but you had said something about they're always saying no, or it's too late, to the point where you just stop asking.
Yeah.
Like you won't even ask. There's some times where I just wouldn't ask, and then my mom would say, oh, why aren't you doing anything, or do you have any? I'm like, well, my friends had to do this, or they want to go here, but I already knew you were going to say no. And then she would say, but why would you think that? Like, you should always ask. The Bible says you don't ask and you may receive. You never know. And I'll be like, but you literally always say no. So sometimes you just don't ask because you already know what's going to happen and you don't want to be disappointed. So you just don't ask.
We're all living the same life, just different families. No, like when you said that your brother like yells at your parents and stuff, my brother does the same. Like
Mine too.
Like, oh my God, that kid has yelled at my mom, my dad so many times. And I'm like, if I would have done that to you, I would have gotten the chancla, el cinto, like, I don't know, the wire or anything.
Literally.
And I'm like, but no, he's just like, oh, he's just a teenager. He has hormones. He's just going through stuff. Like, what's that?
And I'll make like a smart remark one time. They're like, that is so disrespectful. You need to respect your parents and you need to do this. And I'll just be like, literally stop talking to me.
Yes.
Because he can say all that and you'll just be like, cálmate, podemos hablar más tarde cuando te calmes. And if I do that, it's just like falta de respeto. Like tienes que pensar en lo que hace que soy tu padre, que soy tu mamá, stuff like that.
Yeah.
During the individual interviews, when we talked about who was enforcing these gender roles, you all pointed to your moms. Why do you think that is?
I think my mom's kind of admitted to this. But other than like a situational reason as to why, I think it's because like, I don't know if all moms are like this, but I know that some moms like they see their daughters as like an extension of themselves. And when I was telling my mom about that, she's like, yeah, I kind of do. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So and that's something they don't see in their sons. So because they see themselves in us and because she sees herself in me, I guess she is a bit more like strict on like how I appear and what I'm doing and stuff like that. Because I don't know. I guess she just sees herself in me, I suppose.
Do your moms, based off of like your actions, do they always go back to that phrase where it's it goes back to me? Like they're constantly saying that, like, oh, if you do that, what are people gonna think about me? What are people gonna think about me?
Maybe
You're my daughter.
Oh my gosh.
If the house isn't clean, what are they gonna think about me? And it always goes back to them.
She's done that to both about herself and then also my dad, because my dad works here at the university. He's head of grounds. So remember, like, school started, and she's like, Bella, you got to be careful because everything you do can be seen as like a reflection of your dad.
My mom does too. It's like they expect us to be like, I guess you too, because you're like her first girl born first. I feel like they expect us to be like this perfect image for them. Mostly everyone pays attention to us in the family than the boys. Like, in my family, like everyone knows, like the boys are gonna be like the failures.
That's so true. Unlike the guys in the family, like just in general, like having such low expectations for them, and like no one really knows their business either. It's like, oh, is he dating that girl still? I don't know. Or like, oh, does he have a kid? I'm not sure. Everybody knows. Like all the girl cousins and stuff. My business, their business, everyone knows.
Yes.
It's so. Oh my gosh.
But even like you were saying, how they know people's business. Now, everyone in Panama knows each other's business, but the way they react to certain things are different. So, like my cousin Jason, when he had a kid, or even my cousin Jaid, who's my age, had a kid, they're like, oh, yeah, he got this girl pregnant and stuff like that. But my cousin Giselle, who's 27, got pregnant. She ended up having a miscarriage. But when she got pregnant, my mom was like, I can't believe she got pregnant. We literally have been telling Giselle her whole life that she can't be doing that she needs to be like this. And we told her that her habits of her going out late and always being around and going to parties is going to end up like this. Now everyone's going to expect what they already expected from her, that she's going to be a failure. And she was in school. Now she can't finish school. It was an extreme blow up. And to me, I'm like, okay, one, Jade's my age. Because when he got this girl pregnant, I was 19. So he was 19. When Jason got his girl pregnant, he was probably like 23, and like he had just came out of a different relationship. My cousin Giselle had been dating this guy for 2 years, and she was also 25 when she got pregnant. Had a job, also had her own place. He also had a job and his own place. And so to me, her circumstances were way better than those two men. I feel like you're overreacting so much, especially saying like, oh, she can't finish school. You can still finish school. She had like 1 semester left. You're pregnant for 9 months, not like 4 months. But I just didn't like the way that they reacted. And then especially them saying that comment of everyone's going to be right about what they said about her. It's like, why are you even listening to people that's not even a part of our family? What does that matter? I hated that situation, but that reminded me of that situation when my cousin had got pregnant.
Yeah, like growing up, I've always got like told the same things because I have like a lot of cousins that got, and just a lot of family in general that had like kids super young and stuff. So growing up, it's like always learn from their mistakes. Even though I had a decent amount of male cousins as well that have had kids or have gotten into bad situations, but they're never the examples. It is always my fellow primas that are used as the example as to why I shouldn't be like that. It's never my male cousins. It's always them. And I don't know if it's because of like, well, it probably is because of sexism to an extent, or if it's just because like I'm a girl, so I should look up to them rather than male cousins, because I don't know.
I think it's sexism.
Yeah, probably sexism.
These higher expectations that you all experience is something that extends to your cousins. Do you think having higher expectations for women within their family is specific to the Latinx community, or is it universal?
I think women in general have more. There's the world trash. I mean, you can go on social media and easily find women that is being like a woman that's being bashed today for something she wore or something she said in an interview. I feel like, I just feel like the world just judges women so hard, way more harsh than men, because it's expected for them to do what they do. And so I just feel like the world in general is also just double standard. Ours is just, I feel like being Latinos is just a little like different, I guess, in the way of going about it. But overall, the world is more harsh on women.
Honestly, I don't get the world. It makes no sense. And I feel like it is universal since there's a lot of pressure on women to be something in their life. They also want to put like limitations to us. Like, okay, like let's say you can become a congresswoman, but no, you cannot become president. So I feel like it is sexism, and it is universal, honestly, because everyone like expects us women to do something great, but not as great as men.
Last time I spoke to y'all individually, I introduced the concept of marianismo. Have y'all thought of it since?
I haven't thought about the definition since we last spoke. I mean, it's been exerted onto me with my mom. Because I always tell my mom I don't want kids. And she hates when I say that. She literally hates when I say that. Or even like being modest. And so she'll talk about like, ¿Cómo vas a encontrar a un hombre que te quiere casar, que te va a respetar, si te viste así? And I'm just like, I should be respected because I'm human.
Yes.
If someone doesn't want to respect me based off of what I'm wearing, I should not want to be with that person. And I mean, I like some of the stereotypes Latina women do have, like being nurturing, being loving, because I think in general Latinos are so loving and so nurturing, but I also don't like the fact that we're also like viewed as submissive and just because we're like doormats, because we're like the women. But it's also weird because we have that marianismo like in our countries kind of thing, like how you're supposed to be, especially the roles in the household, like you were saying. And then like we're Latinas in the US to where people expect us to be the complete opposite, but our families aren't like that.
But I think there are some traits that kind of like overlap. Like, for example, like being humble. Mm-hmm. Like that's a thing both like in Hispanic like countries and stuff and in the United States. Like women have to be humble. They can't be too braggy. They can't be too confident. Like that is something I would see both here and in Tulimas.
How do you push back when these gender expectations are exerted on you?
Yeah, no, I still do what I want. And if my mom, like, because a lot of times like she'll lecture me, the two most things we talk about the most is how I dress, and then I guess like how I view marriage, just like around things like that. And I just like I still wear what I wear, and I always have to tell her like, if a guy does not respect me from what I'm wearing, I don't want to be with him. And it's just as simple as that. And so I mean, technically I don't view it as rebelling. She probably does. But it's just at the end of the day, I will wear what I want to wear. It's just hard sometimes because like that's what she kind of falls into, like with marianismo. You know, she was raised like girls dress like this, and so if you don't, then you're like a fast girl, like de la calle. And like clothing really has nothing to do. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what someone's wearing. And that's my personal opinion.
I don't really think I rebel. I feel like since I was little, I always wanted to please my mom and be like the daughter that she wanted. I always like fell into whatever category she put me on. And like right now I am like breaking through it, you know, as I came here to college and realized that I can be whoever I want and wear whatever I want. Like I started breaking out from like the categories that she put me, but she's been very supportive, like that I change and everything, which I feel like it's different from many Latin American moms, because she's like, she tries to let me be of who I am, no matter if I don't fit her expectations.
I think my mom's kind of very similar in that. Like, she doesn't want to restrict me too much of like who I am as a person, but she still has like those expectations of me. And in regards to like what I wear and stuff, she does get on to me for what I wear. But I think more so it's like what I wear plus like how I present myself and like how I carry myself and how I like groom myself and all that. She especially gets on to me for that. It's like, oh, you need to pluck your eyebrows, or oh, you need to like stand up tall and straight, and just little things like that. And because she wants me to portray myself in a great way, which I think I could do that regardless of like the shape of my eyebrows or what I wear. But go off.
Do y'all speak out about the double standards within your family? If so, what's been the reaction?
It circles back to like them brushing it off, like how I said, like I complain about how my mom like favorites my brother, how she lets him do all this and that, and she just brushed it off. For she's like, oh, like you're just being dramatic, like he's just a teenager, like hormones or stuff like that. Sometimes I feel like I'm not being listened to, which frustrates me so much, because like they call me for advice or call me for help, and then I try to help them and they're like, no, like you're wrong, like that's not how you do it, or like I don't know, like they get mad at me, and I just feel like sometimes I just feel like I'm not being listened to, or they just don't care of my thoughts or what I say.
Yeah, I get brushed off a lot, and unless I have like a very volatile like explosion or something, it takes a lot of pestering. So I reached a point where it's like, well, I just stopped doing it, but then it like bottles up, and then again I reached that like volatile, I'm like, ah, and I start screaming and yelling, and they're like, why are you like this? And I'm like, I wouldn't have reached this point if you had listened to me beforehand, but now I'm screaming and I've accidentally made him cry, but I don't even feel bad for it.
Like, they get mad at us for not speaking out and not talking to them about how we feel, but then they don't listen to us. Like, pick or choose. A struggle.
Is it ever discouraging to just be brushed off or frustrating?
It like gets tiring, like repeating yourself over and over about everything. Like, I feel like, for example, for you, telling your mom over and over about how you're wearing your clothes, I feel like that gets tiring because it's like goes from one year, gets out from the other. So when it's topics like that I get tired of like telling them or something, I just don't tell them anymore and let them deal with the consequences. Like, if I tell them like, oh, you can't do that because that's gonna happen, and I keep repeating myself and they don't listen to me, I was like, okay, just let it happen. Even though like if it leads to like them having a problem or something, they still blame me for like, oh, why didn't you tell us? Like, I've been telling y'all, but y'all don't listen. But I think at this point, since I'm growing older and I have my own problems and like have other stuff to focus and just worrying about them, I'm like, I'm gonna just tell y'all once, and if y'all don't listen, if y'all don't take my advice, then I'm not letting y'all know anymore. And if y'all have troubles with that again, then I'm like, don't come blame me for it.
I think there's a lot of Latinos that like go through so much. Also, us being like here in this country, we just go through so much, but we can't talk to our parents about it. And like it only comes out like years later where like you feel comfortable or like you've already gone through it, and then you tell them. They're like, but why didn't you tell me that? Like, I know there's a lot of things that I kept from my parents, because not saying they don't love us, because like of course they probably love us. It's just I feel like sometimes the way, especially since we're like Latina women, the way that they love us is like turns into like a toxic way of loving us, to where there's some things that we would like to talk about or like need advice on or just want to get through, but we have a fear of if we tell them, they're gonna judge us, be mad at us, or just, I guess, like regañar like a nosotros. Because I know there were like a few things like that like I went through when I was like 15, and I told my mom last year, but she's like, oh, what happened? I was like, I was more scared that you were gonna be upset at me than coming to like your advice. And that's why there were so many times I would just like be in my room or like lock my room or like just crying, like she would never know why. And like it's because scared of like speaking up, because like even though I think she'd probably care, it was more of like when I first tell you, like she might be mad or she might be disappointed or she's gonna like say this to me, and then that would just make me feel worse. I just feel like we go through so much things and like we can't really talk to our parents about it, at least in that moment.
Despite the reaction that y'all receive when speaking out, y'all still do it. Why is that?
Because you need to get through their thick head at some point.
Yeah, I just want to be heard.
Yeah, in terms of like asking my parents for stuff, well, my mom, of like, oh, can I do this? And I like stopped asking because I was like, I'm not about to like be here and then hear you say no. But like in other aspects, unfortunately, I'm a very argumentative person, unfortunately, and I get that from my mom. No matter how hard like my tongue should be held, it's gonna come out. You cannot go off on me or like talk crazy or just say something outrageous and I just don't say anything back to you. I'm very like snappy, like I'll snap back really fast or like argumentative. And so even like times where like I try to like control myself, it always ends up coming out, because like I always have this attitude of, oh, you're gonna hear me, you're gonna hear what I have to say. And so I don't know if that's a selfish motive in terms of why I keep like speaking out.
No,
but that's why, because if you get to say what you want to say, I am too, and you're gonna hear everything word for word.
Same. I'm very much the same way. I keep speaking out because I cannot help myself.
I feel like it has to relate a lot, like since our parents don't listen, and like how you said, like asking for permission, they say no, so we stopped asking. So it's like we bottle all that up, and then once we like are free or like not with them, we just let it all out, and like we're all expressive and everything. I feel like we can turn into two types of people, like how you guys are very expressive and you talked about how you're feeling, and like, or like you speak out when you want to. But for me, it's different. I don't speak out. Obviously, when I need to, I would. Like, if I see something wrong going on, then I would. But if I don't have to, then I don't. I just keep to myself and keep everything just inside until I explode and just become a whole mess, a crying mess. So I feel like having that problem that our parents don't listen, or that we speak out and they don't listen to us, I feel like it turns into two different people.
Yeah, I think I'm kind of a mix of that, honestly, because I do get pretty argumentative, especially with my parents as the older I've gotten. And I'm like, listen, I'm tired of, well, I don't say I'm tired of your shit quite literally, because again, I would like to live, but I'm like, I'm tired of this. And I argue back with them. But, and like say other certain situations with like a lot of my extended family, I will not argue back to them because I don't want them getting on my ass, and then I don't want my parents getting on my ass later on. So in some, I guess it depends on the situation of whether or not I'm more outspoken.
After speaking to each other more and all these topics and going more in depth with them, how does it feel having more than one person to speak to about this sort of thing and seeing other people with similar situations?
It's nice.
Relief.
Same.
Yeah. No, I'm not alone in this world. I really like talking to you guys. It was kind of interesting seeing like how we all relate to everything. Like we all have this, like I said, we all have the same life, just get different fonts and different like everyone's parents are the same.
Thank you for listening. Join us next time when I speak to 3 Latinos about machismo, marianismo, caballerismo, and how those concepts enforce gendered expectations within the Latina community. I'm Stephanie Robledo, and this was Tu Voz.